Welcome to Great Loop Lifestyle. This edition is covering Charleston, South Carolina, which is our home port. So this was probably one of the more challenging places that we are showing you because there is so much to see and do in Charleston and so many favorites that we have developed over the years that it's really difficult for us to narrow these down to just kind of the best of the best. So as usual, we are focusing on the places that are nearby the local marinas. And there has been a lot written and put out there about Charleston in the last many years because it is a top tourist destination. It's often voted the #1 tourist city in the world. So lots to see and do. Do some research in the specifics of what you enjoy, and I am confident that you will find it in Charleston. So I'm just going to highlight a few of our favorite things in a few of the different categories. So starting off, the marinas you can stay at. St. John's Yacht Harbor is an AGLCA sponsor. They are just a short distance outside the city, but they will require a car ride. So whether that's Uber or a harbor host, you can get from St. John's Yacht Harbor into the downtown historic district in a matter of minutes. So this is a great kind of quiet spot if you want to stay a little bit outside of town and enjoy a little bit of a lower rate at the marina. Another great option, and our home marina for the Perch when she is not on the Great Loop, is Ripley Light Yacht Club. Ripley Light Yacht Club is just across the Ashley River from the Charleston City Marina. It is unique in Charleston because we are known for the current just ripping through the local marinas. Our tide change is about 6, 7, sometimes 8 or 9 feet between high or low tide. So the result of that is that the current is moving very swiftly, making it extremely challenging to dock. The unique thing about Ripley Light Yacht Club is that that little cutout there from the Ashley River where it is situated, while it is tidal, it does not experience those very high-speed currents that you see at places like the City Marina or any of the other marinas really in the Charleston area. And it is literally just a few minutes away from the downtown area by Uber. So definitely something to consider there. The other choice that a lot of loopers take is the Safe Harbor Charleston City Marina, also known as the Mega Dock. This is one of the few marinas on the peninsula of Charleston, close to the historic district. They do have shuttle service into the historic district, and it's walkable, but a longish kind of walk to many of the things you'll want to see and do in Charleston from the Safe Harbor City Marina. Certainly a very popular choice. It can be a little bit rough in there depending on where your slip is. You are pretty much right open on the Ashley River, so there can be wakes, there can be some current running through there. So just keep that in mind. And then the final choice we're going to show you is the Charleston Maritime Center. That is on the Cooper River side of the peninsula. It is definitely the closest marina to the heart of the downtown area, to all the things that there are to see and do. It probably has the least favorable conditions in Charleston for a marina because you do have the current. You also have the port of Charleston is just a little further up the Cooper River, so a lot of the freighters are moving through this area. And I've been on looper boats at the Charleston Maritime Center, and it is a wonderful location, but it can be very rough there, so just keep that in mind as well. As with the marinas and any of these other things that I'm going to show you, feel free to reach out to me for specific advice or information pertaining to your circumstance. As I said, there's so much in Charleston, it's really difficult to just pick some to show you. There are some other marina choices that are a little further outside of town but may suit your needs. And as we move on to some of our favorite places for dining and shopping, you know, the same holds true. Everyone's got their personal preferences, and I may be able to point you in the right direction. Shopping is wonderful in Charleston, and I'm just going to point out kind of the typical shopping areas. One is King Street, and King Street has really grown as a wonderful shopping and nightlife and a restaurant destination. So King Street really runs kind of the length of the peninsula, and while 20 years ago, the portion of King Street that was popular with tourists was on the southern end of the peninsula. Upper King has really come into its own, and there are plenty of shops and restaurants and nightlife in the upper King Street area as well. So definitely explore all of King Street, whether you're a foodie or enjoy shopping or enjoy, music and bar life at night. There's something for you on King Street. Absolutely. The next thing, shopping-wise, is the Charleston City Market. I toyed with whether this was actually an attraction or a shopping location, but the City Market is got a very rich history in Charleston. It runs the length of Market Street. You will see things along there like sweetgrass baskets being made right in front of you, and the stalls inside the market run the gamut from local Charleston crafts, delicacies, things to eat, some tourist types items, kind of souvenirs, but also some really unique Charleston artwork. So definitely check out the City Market if that is the type of thing you enjoy. I do usually like to point out places that you can go for provisions. So the closest grocery store on the peninsula to any of these marinas is the Harris Teeter. It's marked there. However, if you are staying across the Ashley River at one of the other marinas I pointed out, there are plenty of grocery stores in those areas. But if you're exploring the peninsula, the Harris Teeter there on East Bay Street is going to be your best bet. Moving on to dining, Charleston is absolutely a foodie town. So again, if you are looking for a particular type of cuisine and want to reach out to me for recommendations, please feel free to do so. A few of our favorites, Hall's Chop House is certainly a very well-known steakhouse. We both thoroughly enjoy it. The food, the steaks, the sides, the appetizers, the salads, everything is wonderful, and the service is always outstanding at Hall's. One thing I will also mention about pretty much all of the popular restaurants in Charleston, they're very challenging to get reservations, particularly with some of the staff shortages that we have post-COVID. A lot of the restaurants have reduced the number of tables that they'll serve so that they can keep up to their standards on service. So you really have to book very well in advance, which is challenging, obviously, for boaters when we don't know quite when we'll arrive. So a little bit of a tip. Hall's has a very active bar area. First come, first serve, but they serve the same menu. And if you can get a seat at the bar or a table in the bar area, you have a great opportunity to have a good meal without having the reservation issue that you'll have at a lot of Charleston restaurants. Another one we really enjoy is Zero Restaurant and Bar. It's part of the Zero George Hotel. And this is a chef's tasting menu. It is prepared for you by a Michelin-starred chef, and I believe it's generally 7 courses. So it's not a menu where you're going to pick and choose what you're going to have for those courses. You are being served what the chef has prepared for that day. But even for some of the very choosiest eaters we had with us on that particular occasion, it was an enjoyable experience. So really kind of a special occasion restaurant, but a very nice experience. A few other of our favorites. The Peninsula Grill is very well known for its coconut cake, which is phenomenal, but we really enjoy all of the food at the Peninsula Grill. Some of the best bread I've had in my entire life has been at the Peninsula Grill, and from the seafood to the steaks, it is really a first-class experience all around. So we encourage you to try that one out as well. Next one, High Cotton Restaurant. It's been in Charleston for many years. It is now owned and operated by the same group that runs Hall's Chop House that we mentioned. But High Cotton has a little bit more of a southern flair to its menu. It is another place that has a very large bar area where you can sit and dine without reservations, first come, first served. There's often live music in the bar area. And one of our favorites there is actually an appetizer that is a steak served in a martini glass. It's just kind of cut up steak with mashed potatoes in the bottom, and it is really phenomenal. So check that out at High Cotton. Continuing from there, another favorite and kind of a long time staple in Charleston is 82 Queen. The unique thing about 82 Queen is that there are several different dining rooms that are interspersed with courtyards between them. So if the weather is conducive, you are actually eating outside in what feels like a very garden-like setting in the heart of Charleston. 82 Queen is famous for their she crab soup and their shrimp and grits, which are two very signature dishes of Charleston. So definitely try those out if you decide to partake in 82 Queen. Again, restaurants abound in Charleston. Those are a few of the standard bearers and a few of our favorites, but there are many, many more. And if you just kind of wander up King Street or East Bay Street, you'll find tons of restaurants, lots of choices. Moving on to attractions. I am showing you a few that are outside the downtown area. I usually try to focus these on things that are walking distance and, basically a mile from the marinas. However, in this case, there are a few really standouts, and while on this map they do not look like they're nearby, they actually are, and I'll explain to you why. Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. This Patriots Point area is over on the Mount Pleasant side of the Ravenel Bridge, which is the iconic bridge in our harbor in Charleston. But there is ferry service that goes from the Maritime Center area, which is the marina I showed you on the Cooper River side, and runs you straight across over to Patriots Point. So there are several restaurants on Patriots Point. The Naval Museum and Maritime Museum has a World War II era aircraft carrier with some planes on it, and it's really an interesting experience. And there is lots to see and do over at Patriots Point area. The College of Charleston has some of their sports fields out there now, so you can sometimes catch a soccer game or a baseball game. And there is a public golf course on Patriots Point. So very much happening over there. Very short walk from the Maritime Center because you can hop on the ferry and do so. And the same really kind of holds true if you're over at the Charleston City Marina. The other one that appears to be further away is, of course, Fort Sumter, which is there in the harbor in Charleston. Fort Sumter is a very historic location in the harbor, but you can also get there from a ferry service that takes you either from Patriots Point or from the Maritime Center area and takes you through the harbor to the Fort Sumter National Monument. There was a time in the not so distant past where you could actually tie your boat up at the dock at Fort Sumter. They no longer allow that. You have to take the ferry boat over. But it's actually a very good experience to take that tour boat because they're giving you a lot of the history of Fort Sumter as you're making your way to the island. So Fort Sumter was actually built by them filling in that area of the harbor with lots of stones and boulders. As many of you probably know, the first shots of the Civil War were fired on Fort Sumter. The Confederates were on the peninsula and the Union Army was holding Fort Sumter. Lots of legend and lore of how that actually went down. I definitely encourage you to research that if you're interested. But the Fort Sumter, it's said that they were shooting it from Fort Sumter during the war. They were shooting their cannonballs towards the peninsula, and all they could really see at night was the church steeples. So they were firing for those, and I'll show you some of the churches as we go along. But if you are someone who is interested in history, particularly military history, you definitely want to take the trip out to Fort Sumter. Moving back to the peninsula itself, I am going to kind of take you on a walk around the rim of the peninsula. So starting from the Battery area, White Point Gardens is a beautiful park right along the waterway. So that is the view of the water from White Point Gardens. And just across this strait here is the park itself, filled with live oak trees, as you can see, and you can see the water in the background there. And then just across the park are these beautiful old mansions that just surround this particular area. So it's a great place to just kind of walk around and explore history. Just a little bit further from White Point Gardens, and actually kind of in part of the garden, is the Charleston Battery. So those are the cannons there. That is part of what was during the Civil War, the firing upon Fort Sumter, and the battle that was going on there was along this area. Moving up East Bay Street, these are more of the beautiful mansions that you'll see, and just off to the right of the screen is the water. So it's a beautiful view down this street, beautiful view of the houses as well. And this is very typical of what you'll see on a street in Charleston, a mixture of mansions, live oak trees, and palm trees. The Edmonston Alston House is one of the more famous houses that is available for tour, and that is right there on East Bay Street. So you'll want to check that out. Charleston is very well known for its horse and carriage tours, and that's what you see here. Charleston has done a fabulous job of requiring licensing for their tour guides. So the tour guides really are mostly top notch. And even for someone who's lived in Charleston for a long time, I learn something every time I go on one of these tours. So there are lots of these horse-drawn carriages, and there are also lots of walking tours that are really worthwhile and really a great way to see the city and learn about the city. This is just another view of the water from East Bay Street. As you're working your way downtown, we've got this beautiful harbor walk along there. Continuing still on East Bay Street, Rainbow Row is really one of the iconic Charleston places. And as you can see, it's a series of several buildings, each a different color. And back in the 1800s, the color of the building indicated what type of shopkeeper ran their shop out of that building. So one color was a bakery and another color was a butcher, and so on and so forth. So the buildings are now, required to be maintained in the colors as they were originally. And it's just a beautiful place to walk and really see historic Charleston. And continuing on just a little further down that street, you come to the intersection of East Bay and Broad Street, and that's where you'll find the old Exchange and Provost Dungeon. That's the view down Broad Street if you're standing at the dungeon, the outside of the dungeon. And that is where they used to keep the prisoners, pirates. Charleston has a very storied history with pirates, and there are places around town where it's said that they actually did some of the hangings of pirates. So the old Provost Dungeon, it's a very interesting tour. They also do some ghost tours in the evening, which are extremely popular. So another kind of must-see in Charleston is the tours of the old Provost Dungeon. And continuing our walk down East Bay, we've now kind of drifted down a little bit more towards the waterfront. This is the Pineapple Fountain, which is really well known in Charleston. Pineapple is a symbol of hospitality in the South. So that is the reason that we have a pineapple fountain here in Charleston. And it is right along Joe Riley Waterfront Park. Joe Riley is a former mayor of Charleston, served for many decades. So the park was then named after him. And you can see there's some sweetgrass basket makers there inside the park. And as we kind of pan to the right, you can see the waterway and the swings that are part of the park. So those are kind of bench swings that you can sit and rest for a spell while you look out at the beautiful waterway. And then continuing around, you see the rest of the park and another one of the iconic fountains there in the park. Another place of note is called the Four Corners of Law. It is at the intersection of Meeting and Broad Streets in Charleston. And on each corner of the intersection is a different area of law, so to speak. The first corner you're seeing here is the Charleston County Courthouse, which is why it's one of the corners of law. The next corner you see there is the United States Federal Building and Post Office. The third corner in this direction is St. Michael's Church, and Charleston is known as the Holy City. Lots of churches here. And then the fourth corner is the Charleston City Hall. So you've got the city, the county, the federal, and the church as the four corners of law, all at this same intersection. I mentioned Charleston is known as the Holy City, and this is a view of Church Street. One of the carriage tours is going by. But there are several churches and several very historic cemeteries on the peninsula. This is the Circular Church, and legend has it that this particular congregation felt that the devil hid in corners, so they built their church to be circular. And you can see the very iconic tower again of St. Philip's Church in the background there. And walking all through this area, you will also see lots of little parks and courtyards, very similar to what you'd see in Savannah, where you'll just stumble upon a little square with beautiful trees and gardens and some statuary as well. So that is what you're seeing there. But the entire area south of Broad is known as the very wealthy area of Charleston. So if you look south of Broad on the peninsula, any addresses that are south of Broad are said to be, kind of the high-end area of the city. So beautiful homes in that area, just strolling the streets south of Broad is honestly one of my favorite things to do in downtown Charleston, because it's just so beautiful, so historic, and just a very nice way to spend an afternoon. So again, if you have any questions about Charleston, this was a very tough Great Loop lifestyle for me to put together because there were just so many options. And viewing it as a tourist was fun and interesting, but I hope I haven't missed anything important. If you do have any questions, info@greatloop.org is the best way to get a hold of us, and we are always happy to help. Thanks for checking out this Great Loop lifestyle.